In the story of rock music, some bands become famous for one song, one album, or one unforgettable image. Deep Purple became famous for something bigger, helping define what heavy rock could sound like. Formed in London in 1968, they arrived at a time when rock was changing fast. Psychedelia, blues, progressive experimentation, and louder guitar-driven music were all colliding. Deep Purple stood right in the middle of that collision. Over time, they would be described as pioneers of heavy metal and modern hard rock, even though their own style kept shifting. They could be symphonic, bluesy, aggressive, technical, loose, and explosive. That restlessness became part of their identity. Alongside Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, they were later grouped into the so-called unholy trinity of British hard rock and early heavy metal. But Deep Purple's path was never simple. Their story is one of reinvention, lineup changes, legendary albums, creative conflict, and a level of volume that once earned them a world record reputation. The original Deep Purple lineup is often called Mark I, a label that reflects how dramatically the band would transform over the years. It featured vocalist Rod Evans, guitarist Ritchie Blackmore, bassist Nick Simper, keyboardist John Lord, and drummer Ian Paice. From the beginning, Deep Purple were not just another guitar band. John Lord's organ was central to their sound, often giving the music a grand, almost classical force. Ritchie Blackmore brought sharp, dramatic guitar playing, while Ian Paice gave the group a powerful rhythmic engine. At first, the band leaned into psychedelic and progressive rock, which made sense for the late 1960s. Their early albums showed ambition and musicianship, but they had not yet fully found the heavier identity that would make them historic. The chemistry was there, but the direction was still forming. Deep Purple's earliest phase matters because it shows a band searching for its voice before becoming one of the loudest voices in rock. By 1969, Deep Purple made the kind of decision that can either destroy a band or unlock its future. Rod Evans and Nick Simper were dismissed, and vocalist Ian Gillan and bassist Roger Glover joined. This created the classic Mark II lineup: Gillan, Blackmore, Glover, Lord, and Paice. The change was not just personnel, it was a reset of the band's identity. Gillan brought a voice that could scream, soar, and cut through heavy instrumentation with remarkable power. Glover added a bass presence and songwriting sensibility that strengthened the group's foundation. Around the same time, Deep Purple recorded Concerto for Group and Orchestra, a major collaboration with an orchestra that reflected John Lord's classical ambitions. But after that experiment, the band moved in a different direction. Instead of becoming more orchestral, they became heavier, tighter, and more direct. The Mark II lineup would soon create the records that defined Deep Purple's legacy. The turning point came in 1970 with Deep Purple and Rock. The title was almost a mission statement. This was the album where Deep Purple fully embraced a harder, more aggressive sound, and it helped push rock toward what would become heavy metal. The music was loud, fast, and intense, but it was not crude. It had technical skill, dramatic arrangements, and a sense of musicians challenging one another in real time. Blackmore's guitar and Lord's organ often seemed to battle for space, while Gillan's vocals brought a theatrical edge that made the songs feel larger than life. This album transformed Deep Purple from a promising experimental band into a major hard rock force. It also showed that heaviness could be sophisticated. Deep Purple were not simply turning up the volume, they were building a new kind of rock architecture, one made from speed, virtuosity, distortion, and controlled chaos. After Deep Purple and Rock, the band entered an extraordinary run. Fireball arrived in 1971, continuing their rise while showing that they were not interested in repeating themselves. Exactly. Then came Machine Head in 1972, the album that became one of their defining achievements. Its most famous track, Smoke on the Water, grew from a real incident involving a fire at a Frank Zappa concert venue in Montreux, Switzerland. The riff became one of the most recognizable in rock history, but Machine Head was bigger than one riff. It captured Deep Purple as a band with power, discipline, and confidence. The songs were built around memorable hooks, muscular performances, and the tension between precision and wildness. Machine Head helped bring their sound to a global audience and became a pillar of classic hard rock. If Deep Purple in rock announced their arrival as heavy innovators, Machine Head proved they could turn that innovation into an enduring rock language. Deep Purple's reputation did not depend only on studio albums. On stage, they became something even more intense. Their 1972 live album Made in Japan is widely regarded as one of the great live rock records, because it captured the band stretching songs into dramatic, high-energy performances without losing focus. In concert, Deep Purple could sound dangerous, as if the music might fly apart at any moment, but the musicianship held everything together. This was also the period when their volume became legendary. The 1975 Guinness Book of World Records listed Deep Purple as the globe's loudest band for a 1972 concert at London's Rainbow Theatre. That detail became part of their mythology, but it was not just about decibels. Their loudness symbolized the scale of their ambition. They wanted rock to be overwhelming, physical, and immersive. For many fans, seeing or hearing Deep Purple live was the moment hard rock became a full-body experience. Success, however, did not make Deep Purple stable. The same creative intensity that fueled the band also produced tension. In 1973, Ian Gillan and Roger Glover left, ending the classic Mark II era for the first time. They were replaced by vocalist David Coverdale and bassist Glenn Hughes, creating the Mark III lineup. This version of Deep Purple recorded Burn and Stormbringer, both released in 1974. The sound changed again. Coverdale brought a bluesier vocal approach, while Hughes added soul and funk influences. Burn still delivered heavy rock power, but Stormbringer leaned further into groove and stylistic experimentation. Not everyone in the band wanted to move in that direction. Ritchie Blackmore, central to the band's earlier heavy identity, became increasingly dissatisfied with the musical changes. By 1975, he left Deep Purple. His departure was enormous, because Blackmore had been one of the defining architects of their sound. After Blackmore's exit, Deep Purple entered one of the most fragile periods in their history. Guitarist Tommy Bolin replaced him, forming the Mark IV lineup. Bolin was a talented and distinctive player, and the band recorded Come Taste the Band in 1975. The album showed a different kind of Deep Purple, with more funk, soul, and American rock influence. It was not simply an attempt to copy the Blackmore era, which made it interesting, but also controversial among fans who wanted the classic sound. Behind the scenes, the band was struggling. The chemistry was unstable, and the pressure of living up to Deep Purple's reputation was immense. In July 1976, Deep Purple disbanded. Then, only 5 months later, Tommy Bolin died from a drug overdose. That tragedy gave this chapter a dark ending. For a while, Deep Purple seemed like a band whose explosive rise had burned itself out. But Deep Purple did not remain in the past. In 1984, the classic Mark II lineup reunited Ian Gillan, Ritchie Blackmore, Roger Glover, John Lord, and Ian Paice. For fans, this was a major event. The reunion album, Perfect Strangers, was more than a comeback. It proved there was still power in the old chemistry. The band sounded mature but recognizable, reconnecting with the dramatic hard rock identity that had made them famous. A second reunion-era album, The House of Blue Light, followed in 1987. Yet, old tensions returned. Gillan was fired in 1989 due to creative and personal differences, and Joe Lynn Turner replaced him for Slaves and Masters in 1990. This version had a different character, partly because Turner's voice and style were associated with a more melodic hard rock approach. By 1992, Turner was out, and Gillan returned for The Battle Rages On. The title felt fitting. Deep Purple were still fighting their own internal storms. The next major break came in 1993, when Ritchie Blackmore left Deep Purple again. This could have ended the band's momentum, but instead it opened another chapter. Joe Satriani stepped in temporarily, helping the group continue live commitments. Then Steve Morse became the permanent guitarist. Morse's arrival was crucial because he did not simply imitate Blackmore. He brought his own melodic sense, technical precision, and wide musical vocabulary. With Ian Paice, John Lord, Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, and Morse, the Mark VII lineup lasted nearly a decade and recorded Perpendicular in 1996 and Abandon in 1998. Perpendicular in particular signaled that Deep Purple could evolve without losing their identity. The band was no longer driven by the same internal chemistry as the 1970s, but it still had world-class musicianship and a recognizable spirit. Instead of being trapped by nostalgia, Deep Purple found a way to continue as a living band. In 2002, another major change arrived when John Lord retired from Deep Purple. Lord was not just a keyboardist, he was one of the band's signature voices. His organ sound had helped separate Deep Purple from guitar-dominated hard rock bands, and his classical influence shaped their sense of drama. Don Airey replaced him, bringing deep experience and skill to one of the most important roles in the group. With Airey joining Ian Paice, Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, and Steve Morse, the Mark VIII lineup became the longest-lasting in Deep Purple history. It lasted 20 years and produced 6 studio albums. That longevity is remarkable for a band famous for lineup changes. It also left Ian Paice as the only remaining original member, a direct link back to 1968. In 2022, Steve Morse departed after 28 years as guitarist and was replaced by Simon McBride, continuing the band's long pattern of renewal. Deep Purple's influence is difficult to measure because it spread across so many branches of rock and metal. They sold more than 100 million records worldwide, but the numbers tell only part of the story. Their style helped shape heavy metal, hard rock, progressive rock, and live performance culture. Their members also generated important spin-off bands, including Rainbow, Whitesnake, and Gillan, extending the Deep Purple family tree into other major parts of rock history. Recognition followed over time. VH1 ranked them number 22 among the greatest artists of hard rock, and a Planet Rock poll placed them 5th among the most influential bands ever. They received a Legend Award at the 2008 World Music Awards and were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016. Deep Purple's story is not neat, and that is the point. They were loud, brilliant, unstable, ambitious, and constantly changing. Their legacy is the sound of rock becoming heavier, bolder, and bigger than anyone expected. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.